Hello viewers, I'm Major General Neelendra Kumar talking for my video channel Lex Consilium Foundation. In this playlist Going Strong, I'm talking to one of the most distinguished, if not the most distinguished, air warrior India has produced post-independence, Air Marshal VK Bhatia. You would have seen the earlier videos, and in this video the topic of my conversation with him is the Kargil war, and I would like to ask him, in the conversation he used the word multi. Now this multi with regard to in the context of awareness, tasks, responsibilities, how do you see it, sir? Would you like to tell the viewers your experience or your understanding, if I can use the word, lessons that come out from the Kargil?
You see, basically what I like to mention is that at the higher echelons, when you're looking at, you should have a holistic overview and perspective of what is happening around and what is it that you want to achieve.
Quite
so
right.
These goals must be kept in mind, and one must not restrict oneself to a very narrow, shall we say, thinking and output. You have to look at the whole thing very holistically and then decide what you want to do. For example, when you're looking at the line of control, or when you're looking at the entire system, we have to not only worry about small points, individual this thing, but you have to look at the whole thing. And then your response should also be wedded towards that. When I say multi-awareness, shall we say, tasking,
yes,
and accomplishment, keeping in mind your overall aim that you want to achieve. You have to do that.
yes.
And when we're talking about, just to give you an example, for example, when the MiGs came, they were meant only for high altitude, shall we say,
strategic reconnaissance.
I'm not talking about, you're talking about MiG-25s.
Okay.
So MiG-25s are meant for strategic reconnaissance from high altitude. And we found during Kargil that at that high altitude, the targets that we were looking for on the ground were so minuscule that they will not register on the camera. So we had to achieve anything, we had to come down to a lower level. At the same time, we have to make sure that our aircraft were outside the range of enemy surface-to-air missiles, especially the shoulder-to-fire ones, which were in that area, so that they'd be safe from that, and yet be able to accomplish the task. And the only way they could do that is by lowering the altitude from 18 kilometers to 13 kilometers. They were still about 8 kilometers above the ground level, outside the range of the enemy SAMs, but now the cameras were low enough to be able to capture those targets that we were looking for in that area.
Okay, and this includes even, say, night vision and night fighting capabilities, because perhaps this was also required and expected during the Kargil.
You see, night vision capability in all this thing. We are not in what we call times when in the morning the beagle will go up and will start, and when the sun set, the beagle will go up again and you retire for the night.
Reveille and retreat.
It's a 24-hour operation, and therefore a night capability is very, very important, and it is there all pervasive. It is there present all the time. We have to be there.
And finally, in this context, I would also be happy to get your response about the political constraints, because you have been at the highest level of the Air Force and worked in different jurisdictions also. You've seen in the RCDS and met those people. Now, this sort of a limitation that don't cross LOC, now this is a stipulation. Now, of course, this cannot be crossed, and at the same time the services have to deliver, perform their role. So what would be your response to this aspect?
You see, in the classical terms, when you want to use the air power, you cannot put such restrictions on it for it to be effective. But we are talking about from the political side of it, because
yes.
remember, when Kargil happened, Pakistan actually totally took the position that it had nothing to do with them. Yes. That these were freedom fighters or whatever it is. Mujahideens. And therefore, there were certain political restraints that India had to actually adopt to make sure that doesn't happen like that, because that was what was required. So you cannot say that all situations are the same. See, in the classical way, the air power should not be kept restricted. It should be allowed to move like so that it can achieve whatever is required in all dimensions. But here, because of this particular restraint, we were actually restricted to staying within the LOC. And when I look at it in hindsight, we created those kinds of conditions by which we worked in certain manner, modified our working to be able to achieve the same results without crossing the LOC. It took more time, but we achieved it. And the political advantages that we got out of this thing, which was actually undertaken by none other than the Prime Minister himself, paid us well in the long run. But we achieved our military aims as well.
Thank you. Be with us. Our conversation would continue.